Dexter, you can scream as much as you want, but nobody's gonna hear you outside that dark Disney vault. You're in the part of the vault where Disney kept the real stories instead of the cute ones they provided for the kids later on. We were thinking way too deep about these storylines. Then we were like, writers, are you with us? They were like, and as far as Angel is concerned, it's kind of hard for me to feel bad for him right now, because my man was acting like he had nothing to lose. So let's just get right into the story. This is Touched by an Angel. R.I.P. Della Reese. So we start back at the restaurant where we left off, and Prater is like, Red, I didn't know you had a son. Dexter is pissed about this whole situation, but Harrison is a little starstruck because he knows exactly who Prater is. And he's like, hold up, how y'all know each other? And Prater tried to play it off. He was like, you're a car, right? And Dexter went along with the lie so it didn't make a scene in that restaurant, and he was trying to protect his son. And Prater started showing a little interest in Harrison. He was like, so what do you do? And little Harrison is out here doing all this talking while Leon and Dexter are having such a great eye fight. And while he was yapping, Dexter was like, let me cut this off real quick. Leon, can we talk outside? And Prater was like, sure. But before stepping out, he made sure he said, hey, Harrison, we should link. You can come back to the crib. We can all get to know each other after this whole gala business is done. And Prater just touching all on Harrison. I'm sure Dexter is loving that. And Harrison was so excited about that. He said, oh, absolutely. So as Prater and Dexter are walking outside the building, someone is taking pictures. And without seeing who this actually was, I assumed it was Angel because he doesn't have anything else better to do. So Dexter gets outside and sees Charlie standing at the car, and he's just like, man, I prefer that my nemesis does not have a henchman. Or is it a hench person? Dexter was like, I'm trying to be inclusive out here. So then Dexter started talking to Prater, and he said, so you've been having me followed out here? And Prater was like, listen, Red, I don't like surprises. No surprises. And my thing is, if you're going to go full Radiohead here, you should have done the due diligence before he got in your midst. You put all your little people at risk with this, because you can't come back with a statement saying, I usually know all about the people I invite in my inner circle. You clearly didn't know Red, so you definitely don't know Dexter. He pretty much told Dexter, you are too enigmatic of a person. You quit your job, you moved without telling me, and now I find out that you have a son. And that's when Dexter turned into Papa Bear. That man said, you stay away from my son. And Prater was like, all right then, you worse than Cardi B when people bring up her babies. He said, I never come between a father and a son. Now, does Harrison know who you are? And Dexter was like, what do you think? And Prater said, to be honest, I don't know. I don't know you like that. He said, I won't blow up your spot like that. But you really need to be worried more so about Charlie, because Charlie's the one that's suspicious of you. She thinks you actually are the drama, Cardi D. And Dexter replied, do you think I'm stupid? If I was actually coming for you, you wouldn't see me until it's too late. Which is true to a certain extent because they didn't see Brother Bay Harbor coming. Then Prater said, Red, you have to trust me. I've shared more with you than anyone else, serial killer or otherwise. And this is hilarious to me because Blessing is in the same boat. I feel like people have known Dexter all of 3 to 5 business days, but they have no problem telling him their deepest, darkest secrets. Meanwhile, people that they've known for years don't get this information. And then Prater came back and said, you live in a shroud of secrecy. And I want to schedule a one-on-one so we can talk about your whole history and why you do what you do. And if you're honest, I won't feel the need to have you followed, right? And Dex was like, cool. I just want to reiterate that my son is off limits. Trust goes both ways. And Prater was like, you don't know how happy you've made me, Red. You're part of my world now. And Dexter was thinking to himself, hussy, I don't have flowing red hair or a fin. Does it look like I'm trying to be part of your world? My son isn't either. But Dexter doesn't know what's just around the river bend for he. So after Prater was gone, he popped back in that restaurant and said, Harrison, we need to leave. We need to bill. Turns out Prater already done paid the bill. Left him a nice expensive bottle of dessert wine at that. He quickly said, don't want it. Dexter had to snatch him up out that seat because Harrison was moving too slow for my taste. He's asking too many questions. Listen, if we are at a restaurant or somewhere out in public and I come in and say, we need to leave, baby, I don't need all these questions. Simon said, get the up. You have to move more of your feet and less of your mouth. And then they left out of the back exit of the restaurant. And that's when Harrison asked, what's really going on? You told me no more secrets. And then Dexter was like, Prater isn't what he seems. And then he gave him a full rundown of what was going on behind the scenes. He confirmed that that's how he found Lady Vengeance and that he took out Lowell as well as the Gemini killers. So they hit the subway so they could shake a potential Prater tail. And then you find out that the person that was taking the pictures was in fact Angel. He followed them into the subway. And while Dexter and Harrison are walking, Harrison is getting a little bit more nervous. He's like, this is reminiscent of the Trinity killer. When you got too close to him, it got mom killed. He literally could have gotten me. Dexter said, you are safe. And this will be all over soon. Prater and Charlie are only concerned with me. He's like, I got this situation and I got you. it's dangerous to make these absolute statements. Like, it's hard for you to have a grasp on all the wild cards that exist. Now, at this point, Angel has gotten on the train with them. They didn't see him, but he saw them. Dexter said, listen, I'm going to jump off this train just in case I'm being followed. Just go to work. I'll holler at you later. So he waited to the last second and hopped off the train. And Angel was pissed. He was like, F***. And Tatiana was looking at the kettle and was like, watch your mouth, asshole. There's kids here. That had me rolling. Now, back over at the Empire Hotel, Lance is in the locker room. He says, hey, Harrison, you want to make $45 an hour for a waiting gig? And at first, Harrison was like, hell yeah. But the moment he found out it was at Prater's crib, he said, you know what? I ain't even gonna hold you. I totally forgot I had plans. Have fun. Let me know how it goes. And then the manager walks in and says, hey, Harrison, there's a specific room service request for you on the 10th floor. And when he gets up there, you see that it's Charlie waiting on him to bring the stuff in. So while Dexter's at home cooking his late breakfast, he gets a phone call from Harrison saying, hey, I just had a terrifying conversation with Charlie Chaplin. And Dexter said, tell me exactly what happened. Charlie was like, why don't y'all's last names match? Why aren't you a Schmidt instead of Morgan? And Harrison was like, why does that matter to you? And she said, I have to vet everybody that comes to my boss's house. Then she put the strap on that table. And that did not help Harrison at all. He was like, nice chat, champ. I'm going to get back to work, though. And she said, not too fast. I talked to Stefan, and he said you can stay with me your entire shift if I need you to. And she was like, go ahead, cop a squat, kumquat. So why is your last name Morgan again? And Harrison said, I took my mom's last name, Hannah Morgan. Red abandoned us when I was 5. And Dexter replied, I will never abandon you again. And I'm thinking, shut up, Dexter. Never make a promise that you can't keep. He should know better than to make that type of statement. And I'm glad that Harrison called him out on it. He was like, well, that's good and all, but the life you live really isn't your decision, is it? And then he got back to the story and was like, you know, I had this empty spot in my life when Red wasn't in it, so I came to find him. I needed to find him to find me. And he said, I was slick disappointed to find out that he's at this big age and he's just a rideshare driver. Not the drivers catching strays. The laugh that Charlie let out had to be from the diaphragm. It was so rich. And Harrison didn't know why she was laughing, but Dexter was like, it has more to do with the fact that Red takes out rideshare drivers. And Harrison was like, so she didn't know that you were a rideshare driver? And Dexter was like, nope. I mean, all in all, Harrison did a great job of like being on the spot and speaking extemporaneously. He said at the end of the chat, she thanked him for his candor, asked for his phone number so she could let him know when Prater could meet. And then Dexter was like, did you take everything out that room? And Harrison said, do you mean the breakfast stuff? Nah, she was still eating when I left. And toward the end of this call, Dexter was like, I think it would be better if you stay with me for the next few days until we get all of this taken care of. And so Dexter popped upstairs to talk to Blessing. He said, hey, Blessing, I need a favor from you. A favor? After telling all my business? And Dexter was like, man, listen, I care about you and Joy's relationship, so I was trying to help, and then you add into the fact that she was poking me with them needles, it loosened up my tongue. That was a mistake, and for that, I'm sorry. And then Blessing gave him a hug and said, I forgive you. And I'm sorry too. Come on, reconciliation. Then he asked, so what's the favor? And Dexter said, can you pick Harrison up from work? He got himself into a little bit of trouble. And Blessing said, say less. I got him. Now, I appreciate that they made up, but we'd have had to have a different conversation about how Dexter just came in my house and left my door open. Sir, these power bills are way too high out here. We not trying to air condition the whole neighborhood, bruh. Close it. You gonna let mosquitoes and flies up in here. So Dexter called Harrison and was like, hey, you remember Blessing? Blessing gonna come scoop you from the hotel later when you get off, and I need you to look through some hotel records for me. And as soon as he said that, we knew exactly where he was going next. Because his name is Dexter, of course he's going to break into Charlie's house in broad daylight without anybody paying attention to him. Especially in New York. You know them folks going to mind their business heavy out that way. So he's walking through Charlie's house and he sees pictures of her and her mom. He sees that both of them are war heroes. Then he finds the Empire Hotel paraphernalia that Harrison brought up for breakfast, and they were checking Harrison's DNA. And Harry was pissed. He said, this is a violation of you and Prater's agreement. And then Dexter was like, well, Harrison hasn't been arrested for anything, so the DNA isn't going to lead them anywhere. And for a second, I almost thought to go down a rabbit hole of the DNA being tied to the watch and all that kind of stuff. I said, nope, the writers have their own direction and they're not taking us down that path. So as Dexter keeps walking through the house, he eventually gets upstairs and sees Charlie's mom in the hospital bed. And Dexter was like, oh my gosh, she's taking care of her mom? But Harry was in rare form. That man said, hey, don't go easy on her just because her mama's sick. Harry wants blood. But Dexter didn't intend to go easy on her. So as Charlie was out getting flowers for her mother, so we already knew that Dexter was going to be in that backseat once she got back in it. But what I'm more impressed by is the fact that Dexter can break into pretty much anything. A house, a car. I'm sure that Mercedes probably had some very anti-theft kind of stuff going on. He just got in like it was nothing. And there's also a possibility that she could have just left the car unlocked. Now, when she got back in the car, I was expecting Dexter to hit her with that horse juice, but he didn't. This time, he decided to actually appear as Red. He whipped out that ghillie and put it around her neck. He was like, go ahead and toss that weapon in the other seat. If you pointed at me at all, I'm sawing your head off. And she was like, what do you want? He said, I want you to drive. And his face looked so intense. The dark passenger was in full effect. When he transforms into the dark passenger, it's almost like a demon takes over. So I don't think he was being completely himself. I think he was trying to put on an act as Red. Just the way he was talking, he was like, I visited your house today. I saw your mother. Saw the pictures of you two. You two were heroes. So how did you end up here with Prater? And then Charlie talked about how she did a number of security gigs before landing with Prater, and then Prater found out that her mom was sick and decided to help her with specialists and the medications, all that kind of stuff. Bought her about 8 years of time so far. And Charlie just came out and asked Dexter, did you kill my mom? And Dexter replied, you know that feeling that you have in your gut right now? I had that same one when I got a call from my son saying he got a visit from you. And Charlie circled right back to her question, did you kill my mother? And Dexter said, nah, that's not me. And judging by your medals, I don't think it's you that would choose to mess with or threaten innocent kids like my son. And I'm like, Dexter, hold up. Harrison is not innocent. You took his innocence when he was a kid. And it didn't help when he showed up in New Blood because you taught him your ways. Harrison is a young man who's trying to figure things out and be a good person, be a better person. But innocent he is not. Did we already forget about Ryan Foster? And Charlie asked Dexter, do you really think that I could do any of this without Prater's permission? He told me exactly what I needed to do, including booking the room, getting Harrison alone, all the way down to putting the strap on the table. And then she said, he plays on everyone's weakness. Mine is my mother. Yours is clearly your son. And then Dexter started having his inner monologue and was like, oh, so Prater's the one that broke the promise. So Prater's the one that needs to be on the table. So then Dexter tells Charlie to pull over and he reminded her, leave my son alone or I'm going to pay your mama another visit. And as he was getting out of the car, that man nicked her throat one more again. And I'm going to tell you right now, I would have tried to get him on that street right then because ain't no way you're going to threaten me, then nick my Adam's apple again. Well, she didn't have an Adam's apple, but I do. So ain't no way I'm going to let you nick my Adam's apple like you crazy and just frolic off like Bambi as if nothing happened. I got to get my lick back somehow. For the first time, Charlie looked super terrified. So over at the precinct, you have Detective Wallace and Oliva looking at man cover hooks, and apparently a number of people have access to them. Detective Oliva was like, so we pretty much looking for a needle, right? She said, as in a haystack? She smiled and said, oh, that was a good one. That was her first smile of the season. And then Angel shows up and says, you wanted to see me? So they walked him to an interrogation room, and Claudette just got straight to it. She said, I want you to know that I talked to Detective Quinn. And Angel was like, I can explain. And Claudette said, so can I. You were in violation of New York State Code 57821, and we got to take you out of commission, baby. You've been out here impersonating a police officer, which is a felony. And then she also let him know that she talked to Mr. Morgan. And Angel replied, did he convince you that he's one of the good ones? And she said, he actually told me about your history of loss. She said, he told me about you losing your partner, James Dokes, who was the Bay Harbor Butcher, as well as Maria LaGuardia. And Angel was like, man, Dexter's a liar. He pretty much called him Drake, because he said he's a master manipulator. Dexter is the Bay Harbor Butcher. And Claudette came back was like, baby, that's cute, but I'm going to need you gone by tomorrow. Otherwise, I'm going to have you arrested. You better cease and desist and go home. And as he was walking out, Detective Oliva stopped him and said, Miami Metro sent a message and said, if you're out, stay out. Hand over that shield, boss. Now, honestly, I think everybody did Angel a solid because they could have arrested him for impersonating an officer, but they understood that he went through a bit of trauma with Dokes and LaGuardia, which they gave condolences for, and they recognized that he was an officer not too long ago. So after feeling humiliated, Angel walked out all sad, but then he saw a picture of Prater for the gala promo in the office. So now he has another idea that's not going to be intelligent. So Dexter gets home and he thinks Charlie done found out where he lives because he hears a woman's voice inside. So Dexter pops in the house ready to be aggressive when he just finds Harrison and Gigi making out on the couch. And I'm thinking, Harrison, you just got to the man's house. I know this man does not want to have to put a blue light to this couch to figure out what he needs to clean out of it. Calm down, friend. The situation was a little awkward between Dexter and Gigi and Harrison because Dexter and Harrison were trying to have a conversation while Gigi was standing there. You could tell she was sort of weirded out when Harrison asked Dexter if he could go kick it at her place. And then Dexter was like, "You should be okay." And she was like, "I gotta go to the bathroom. Is that okay?" So while she was in the bathroom, Dexter and Harrison were conversing. And Dexter told Harrison, "Go over to Gigi's house. Don't come out. DoorDash your food. You should be good. And either way, you will be good. Because I had a nice long conversation with Charlie and she shouldn't be coming after you again." And then he tried to be a dad and give Harrison protection just in case they were going to go down that road. And I was like, well, he probably already got that covered, Dexter, because Gigi said Blessing has everything. So then we're back at the Prater estate and Charlie's telling Prater what Dexter did to her in the car. She was like, "And then he licked me with that Geely saw." And he was like, "Show me. Like, I want to see the scar." Then he tried to touch it. He was so excited. Prater was like, "It's amazing. You actually survived a run-in with a serial killer." And Charlie said, "I could have been killed." He said, "Yeah, but you weren't." And she said, "I think he's sending us a message." And he was like, "Ooh, you need to pipe down on that us part, because I think he was just talking to me. You are that message. The message is, I'm still in charge. The dark passenger is mine. And most importantly, he still wants to play with us." And Charlie was trying to tell him, "I don't know about that." But he cut her off and said, "How's your mother? How's the medication treatment? How's that new specialist working out?" And then that's when Dexter calls. And Dexter was like, "I was thinking about that conversation you were talking about having. You know, the one with no surprises? Except for that knife I'm going to put in your heart." He said, "Let's meet up. You thinking about tonight?" And Prater said, "I could do tomorrow morning before the gala." And Dexter asked, "Can it be just the two of us? I don't really trust Charlie the same way I trust you." And Prater said, "Sure, it'll be just me and you." So let's talk about Angel with these bright ideas. He has bright ideas. He had the brightest idea to show up to Prater's place talking about, "Hey, he's in danger. I need to talk to him right now." But good old security was trying not to be secure. He was like, "You need to leave." I'm trying to figure out what kind of operation Prater is running, because who are these security guards? If somebody comes in and says your boss is in potential danger, wouldn't you ask, "What do you mean by that?" I mean, wouldn't you believe that if his life is in danger, your life is potentially in danger as well because you're a security guard? But it was very dismissive of Angel. And then he started getting handsy with Angel and trying to push him back, but then a little tussle ensued. And Angel was actually holding his own against 3 different dudes until Charlie showed up. She snatched him up and said, "Now what's going on with my boss?" So Prater, Angel, and Charlie are talking, and Angel's like, "How do you know this man?" And Prater was like, "You mean Mr. Schmidt?" And Angel was like, "No, this is Dexter Morgan. I've worked with this man for over 20 years in Miami Metro homicide." And let me tell you, Prater's interest was piqued. And Charlie looked back at that man like, "I told your ass." So Dexter's over here prepping for this Prater meeting. He's putting on his fake and baked thumbprint per usual. He walked in all cool, calm, and collected like he knew exactly how it was going to go down. And of course, Prater had different plans now. Dexter was like, "Oh, I've been looking forward to this." And Prater was like, "I thought it would be right that we have this meeting in the vault," which Dexter would be all for that because it's private, so he can kill him in there and just leave him in the vault. He can also come back and get his little babies. He want his blood slides back. But the rest of the sentence is what threw Dexter off, because he said, "So we can clear the air, Dexter Morgan." Dexter was getting ready to react, but then Charlie popped up as if she were in the back seat. See, it's no fun when the rabbit got the... And Charlie was like, "Stay cool, stay cool." Then she emptied out his pockets, took his phone, found his knife, and as they were walking into the vault, Prater was like, "I know exactly who you are, Dexter Morgan, and I love it." And as he said, "I love it," the lights revealed that Angel is laid out and restrained, in which one would assume that he was laid out for the Bay Harbor Butcher to do his work. And he's strapped to Brian's table. And when Dexter saw Angel laying out on that table, he thought, "Angel, you just couldn't let it go. Now here you are. Here we are." Prater brought up how Dexter responded to those blood slides. And I was like, I knew he had to see it on episode, 4? And then Leon said, "But the conversation I had with Detective Batista helped me put all the pieces together." He said, "So Lowell didn't disappear. Neither did Red. How did you do that?" And Dexter was like, "Why would I say that in front of him? Because he doesn't know that Angel isn't a cop anymore." And Prater responded, "I'm just really excited to be talking to the living, breathing Bay Harbor Butcher." And then he asked about him setting up James Stokes. He said, "How did you feel? Like, you gotta feel a little bad for this man actually getting credit for your work." And Dexter asked, "What are we doing here?" And that's when Prater responded, "I would like to be your benefactor, sort of like I was with the Gemini Killer." And he could not stop saying Bay Harbor Butcher. He got goosebumps. And he told Dexter, I have an extensive database of killers, and we can invite them up for a week and have a good time and then watch you do your thing. You can add them to your collection. And to be honest, I thought he was doing this already. I thought maybe he was just playing coy and pretending like he didn't know who Dexter was, and he was just letting them take out other killers because he had already had them around for a number of years. Maybe he just got bored. But nope, he didn't know that till this episode, thanks to Angel of all people. And speaking of Angel, Dexter asked, what's the plan for Angel here? And Prater said, this is your price of admission. And he tried to hand Dexter this knife, and Charlie was like, sir, let's not. Not after what I've been through, but he insisted, so he gave Dexter the knife and stepped back. So Dexter was standing over Angel's body before he said, you want to see how the Bay Harbor Butcher gets down? And of course Prater does. But Dexter is trying to stall, so he looks back at Charlie like, tell her to lower her weapon. And Prater did him one better. He said, girl, hand it over. This is embarrassing. So Dexter raised up that knife, and he was thinking to himself, Angel is a threat to my son's life, to my life, and the number one rule is do not get caught. And he did exactly what I expected him to do, which is to cut Angel free from the table. Dexter was thinking, we were partners once before, maybe we can do it again. And I'm thinking this is the moment where things change for them, because he could have gone through with it and just taken Angel out, but instead he had a heart and he chose to spare his old friend. Because make no mistake, this is a life or death situation for both of them, but instead of acquiescing to the pressure, he freed that man. Now I expected Angel to see this as kindness and fight with Dexter in tandem to take down Prater and Charlie, but he did nothing of the sort. Instead, he went after Dexter, and I was like,
well, shit. Here we all are.
That boy done lost his mind. And Leon Cohen didn't know what to do. He said, let's watch what happens live. Angel got Dexter on the ground and he was trying to choke him out. He said, this is for Dokes and Maria. Yo BS gotta stop. And Dex was thinking, so much for cooperation. It seemed like Dexter was letting Angel get the best of him. Or maybe just the crazy strength on Angel was working. He would have probably been successful had Prater not been a coward and put 5 bullets in his back. He only had 1 bullet left and he tried to say that for Dexter, but he missed because Charlie was pulling him up out of that room. Now, of course, Dexter knows how to throw an axe because he caught Charlie on the forearm, but she and Prater made it out of the vault before the door closed. So when the door closed, Dexter looked back over at Angel and he saw that he was losing life fast. That man was headed for the upper room. And Dexter took this time to say, I need you to know that I didn't kill Maria or Dokes. I may be the Bay Harbor Butcher, but I didn't kill them. And Angel said, it was your fault that they died though. And now I'm dying because of you. Now Angel, I know you're on your way out, but I want you to take this note with you on your way to the upper room and read it when you get there. Because I need you to understand this even in the afterlife. A lot of this was your fault. You made some very dumb decisions. Your whole pursuit was like the wrong way to do it, but I digress. But Dexter came back and said, I'm sorry. And Angel faintly said, Dexter Morgan. And I think he's about to say something sweet. This man was like, F you. And I said, baby, take it to the grave. At least he kept the same energy because those were the last words he used before it was all over. And Dexter was visibly shaken. Then he let out one of the loudest battle cries. And you can scream and cry all you want, Dex, but nobody's going to be able to hear you inside this dark Disney vault. And that's how the episode ended. Now, I'm wondering what's going to happen since he's in that vault right now, because he clearly didn't respond in the way that Prater wanted him to. Prater can do so many things. He could turn him in, he can kill him and turn him into taxidermy for his vault, which is highly unlikely. Or the one that is most likely is Prater exploiting Dexter's weakness, which is his son. So Harrison,
You in danger, girl.
overall, I thought it was a great episode. I didn't love the path that Angel was taking throughout most of the season, really, especially the last 3 episodes. But he did go out like the Miami Metro officers usually do when they're chasing after Dexter. He doesn't kill them himself, but somebody there gonna kill him. And after finishing this video, I do kind of feel bad for the man. He was definitely moving like he had nothing to lose, and maybe he did believe that. After all, he was no longer a cop by choice. I guess he wasn't married or anything. He had his sister, but his sister has her own life. And he wanted to vindicate his friends. He just went about it poorly. I just don't understand why he quit the force in the first place. The reason why he could even walk in those rooms and have a conversation with the NYPD detectives was because he was fellow law enforcement. The moment they found out he wasn't, they were like gone somewhere. And I hate the fact that so many officers go at Dexter alone. He's not a person that you go one-on-one with. You got to bring out the squad for him. And as far as Angel goes, he let his emotions rule over him. And now look at him. He's just dearly departed. And I feel bad for Harrison because Dexter kept kind of telling him, oh, I'm not going to abandon you ever again. I got this. You'll be okay. You'll be safe. I don't think he's safe now with you off the streets. It's crazy because Dexter could have just moved here and helped his son get through this situation, but instead, he went on his own extracurricular activities trying to do side missions. Trinity told that man at the beginning of the season his problem was he thought he could have it all. And that's what Dexter's been doing this whole season. Miguel Prater gave him a warning as well. He said, you might think you're doing pretty good by taking all these bad guys off the streets, but the graveyard is full of people that shouldn't be in the graveyard because of you. Harrison in this very episode said, hey, you don't really have control of if you abandon me or not. The Dark Passenger runs this situation, and the situation can flip at any moment. Let's just hope nothing happens to Harrison because I feel like the Dark Passenger will get even darker. So my biggest issue with Dexter is that he thinks he's the smartest person ever to exist. It's almost as if nobody can ever set a trap for this man. He always makes it seem like he thought of everything, when in fact, a lot of luck plays into him actually being successful. For example, Dexter was supposed to kill Hector Estrada, and the only reason why that opportunity was available to Dexter is because LaGuerta let Hector out as bait to catch Dexter. And she would have caught him in the act, except for Hector opened his mouth and said, you probably working with that cop bitch that got me out. And Dexter was like, first of all, who you calling a bitch? Secondly, who is this cop bitch you talking about? And that's when he figured out that LaGuerta had set the trap for him. So luck has always been on his side. Even when he's dealing with crazy people, somehow it works out in his favor. Because Lila definitely blew up Dokes. And it's so interesting because Dexter likes to talk about not having a being to pray to. Meanwhile, he's been touched by an angel this whole time. But at some point, his luck will run out. What did y'all think of this episode? There was quite a bit going on. Any predictions on what's going to happen in the finale? I'm interested to see how they're going to get Dexter out that vault with all those weapons in there. They're going to have to get rid of Batista's body anyway, so at some point they're going to have to go in there. Oh, Brother Harrison, I don't want it to be you, but it's kind of looking like they're going to have to use you as a hostage or something. Feel free to leave a comment, hit that like button, subscribe, and hit the notification bell so you know when I drop new content. Thank you for watching, and until next time, take care.